What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the show, man. Recap with Mo, where we're getting ready to get into another episode breakdown of Tyler Perry's Sistas, alright? But before we get into this thing, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss shiznit that's going down. So the episode we're getting ready to get into is episode number 18 of season 6, titled From the Blindside. Now, the synopsis for this episode states, when Jordan's sister Penelope shows up, Gary and Andi are both put in an uncomfortable situation with doubts about his son's safety. Zac and Fatima try to track down Heather's whereabouts. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this thing. Alright, so we kicked this episode off where we left off with Brother Gary and Sister Andi. Now, we already knew it was going to be some shit in it when this went down, when it ended last week, because this brother all of a sudden had amnesia. And when I'm do I know you? No, I don't think we do. Andi is like, are you serious? He was like, no, I don't think I know you. Now, I'm just saying, if Andi really wants to learn how to be a great attorney, she needs to take some lessons from Brother Gary, because Brother Gary said what he said with his chest, with a straight ass face. So, Andi, if you want to become a great attorney and get that poker face game going, you need to go ahead and talk to Brother Gary about that. But anyhow, moving on with the show, man. So, anyhow, Jordan is like, hey, what's good? Am I missing something? Gary's like, no, I'm just going to go ahead and get up out of here. I'm tired. I got to make some phone calls tomorrow. Like, it's just been a busy day. Jordan is like, no, you're not going nowhere, bro. Like, you work all the time, and my sister is coming. So, of course, Andi is like, what in the heck is going on? And not only Andi, but now Sabrina obviously noticing something going on out of her peripheral, right? So she turns to the side and notices Gary. Now, she leans over to Danny to say, hey, is that Gary? Danny looks, and of course, she got to bring the mess. So yeah, she was like, yeah, that looks like him. Like, let's go over there and talk to him. Like, let's really make this uncomfortable, right? So they head over there. Sabrina is a little hesitant, but of course she's going to follow suit because Danny is leading the way. So when Danny gets over there, she was like, hey, what's good, Gary? Gary has his head to the sky. Keep your eyes keep your eyes on the prize, my brother. Don't you lose focus right now, brother. Stay strong. I know it's hard. It was hard enough with just Andi, but now you got Andi, Danny, and Sabrina. So anyhow, he was like, look, I really got to get up out of here. Jordan is like, no, bro, I've already told you, you're not going nowhere. So he walks off. Jordan follows behind him. The girls head into the house or whatnot, standing in the dining room now, or the eating kitchen, whatever you want to call it. So anyhow, as Gary is leaving, Jordan follows him. Danny is like, look, I want to know what's really going on right now. And she calls Gary to come back into the house. So everybody comes inside of the house. Everybody's uncomfortable. Well, not everybody, just one person in particular. And of course, Andi is feeling some type of way at this point. Now, she really gonna feel some type of way when everything else comes into play, because now Danny is like, okay, how do you know Gary? And of course, Gary has to leave to go make a so-called phone call, right? So as he's leaving, he's out in the room. They're having this little sidebar conversation. In walks Penelope, belly and all. Now, so when she walks in, her brother Jordan immediately runs over, but of course, nobody knows that this is his sister, except for Tony and Rich, of course, but the ladies don't know anything about this being his sister. So immediately when he embraces her, Andi and the girls are looking, like, who in the hell is this? So he conveys to them that, hey, this is my sister Penelope, and she's like on immediate, like, where in the heck is Gary? Like, where's Gary? And he was like, oh, he made a phone call. Hey, y'all, go ahead and get Gary to get off the phone and come on in here. So Andi is looking around like, what in the hell is going on? And I was like, sis, you already know what's going on. Like, don't act naive at this point. Don't have amnesia like Gary. You know how he get down. you know what this is. But she's in denial, y'all. So anyhow, Gary comes back in. He was like, oh, keep your eyes to the clouds. Man, I was tripping. So he comes in. She was like, hey, babe, come here, embrace. And they come over, they hug, and they cuddle a little bit. And everything is just so damn uncomfortable at this point. So she pretty much conveys to the ladies that, due to Danny, of course, getting into the information, hey, how long y'all been together? She was like, oh, well, we've been together for 3 years. And not only that, but we're engaged. And this is our first baby. So all of these first time Andi has heard this, she thought she was the only one. But obviously he got another one. So, like Beyonce said in that song, 1 + 1 = 2. But in this case, it equals 3. So the math is off. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm sorry for you, brother. I don't even know what to say. But anyhow, moving on from there, Gary comes back in and he was like, hey, babe, look, we need to leave. We need to get up out of here. And Jordan conveys to his sister, like, he's been trying to get up out of here the whole time. She was like, look at me. He's uncomfortable as hell. But we're not going anywhere. Like, we're staying right here. And as a matter of fact, we stayed a long-ass time. So he was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, we could do that. So anyhow, she's like, look, you travel all the time. And Andy's sitting on the sideline, does he? So what I'm assuming is when he's talking about traveling, he's simply talking about, he's traveling across town to hit up Andi and not talking about no sky miles, if you understand what I'm saying. So going on from there, Penelope is like, look, I want to know everything about you, Andi, because she now knows who Andi is. She knows that her brother loves spending time with Andi, even though this is their second date. So she wants to get to know her a little bit more. So she says, hey, join me over here on the couch or whatnot. We're just going to have some girl talk or whatnot. Of course, Andi isn't feeling, she's not feeling this right now. But Danny's like, no, we're definitely going over here to sit down to find out, what's the goings on, right? So anyhow, next we head over to Karen's crib where we see, what's his name? Brian visiting her. Now, he was supposed to call, he was supposed to call her with the estimates, but I guess he wanted to just show up because obviously he did not call her before he showed up because of her response. So she was like, oh, you got it back that soon? He was like, yeah, definitely. Could I come on in? So when he comes in, he sits down, he gives her, the document with the, the estimate on it. She was like, damn, that's a whole lot. He was like, it is. Like, bro, you already knew how much it was. So anyhow, he goes in to tell her that, hey, you can shop it around to see, but this is going to be your best price or whatnot. She was like, okay, well, I trust you. Now, Karen, I'm looking at you sideways because you just met this brother. And you sitting up here talking like, I trust you and I'm willing to work with you. Now, at the same time, I'm looking at him sideways as well because did you guys notice when he said, well, you can just call your insurance company and, and she was like, well, I don't have any insurance. And then this smirk went on his face, like this smile. Now, maybe it was just me because I don't know. We don't know nothing about Brian. We know that he's supposedly married with 7 kids, but that's all we know. But I don't know. It something seems a little bit off, and then he shows up unannounced, doesn't call or anything. How you know I'm there? So anyhow, let me go ahead and we'll talk about that later. So anyhow, going on from there, Karen is like, well, how long do you think it's going to take? Well, he's like, well, my guesstimation is it'll probably take about 5 months. And she was like, 5 months? He was like, yeah, I mean, I'm just guesstimating, but I'm just assuming, right? And then he goes on to tell her, like, hey, you can call me at any time, if you need some advice, along with my wife, of course, if you need some advice about how to raise your child, because we know how it is, with single parents and all of that stuff. And of course, she's like, well, how in the hell did you know I was a single mother? Even though, or a single mother to be, right? And he was like, oh, well, I overheard the conversation with Pam. And she was like, all right, enough said. So anyhow, moving on from there, When Brian leaves, Karen calls Pam to tell her that she needs her to go to the hair store to pick up some items for her. Of course, Pam got some words to say, and she was like, oh, I also need you to come over here and help me move some of this furniture around. Well, she was like, oh, no, I can't do that. Like, I ain't no slave or whatnot. Why don't you go ahead and call Aaron? She was like, no, I'm not going to do that. But, you know, if you need some assistance, I know he's willing to come over there. And she was like, no, I don't want him to come over because, you know, he'll read too much into it. So I understand what Karen is saying. But at the same token, you can't move this furniture around. So just go ahead and call the brother, all right? Also with that, you know, she tells Pam that she's going to work from her home. Pam is like, what the hell? Like, you gonna be you're gonna be doing dudes up outside your crib? She was like, yeah. She was like, you really want those people coming over to your house? She was like, yeah, or we can go over to your house. And she was like, hell to the no. So, you know, she's going to have Pam working for her part-time, at least for right now. So going on from there, we see Zac and Fatima chilling in the car. They're sitting outside the apartment complex of Heather, right? So as they're sitting there, Zac is contemplating what he needs to do. Like, am I going to handle it my own way, or am I going to go the legal route? And he decides to go the legal route because he wants to do it right so he can make sure that he can get custody over his son, Michael. Now, as he's sitting there, they decide to go up and just do, you know, a check-in just to make sure he's good. So, of course, when they get up out of the ride, we already knew somebody was going to be outside. And it just so happened to be the nosy-ass neighbor, Miss Cheryl. All right, so Miss Cheryl is out there with her house coat on. And she was like, yeah, I heard she called the police on you. Like, how the hell you hear that? Like, who told you that? So anyhow, Zac is like, yeah, we're just coming over to check in on Michael. Miss Cheryl is like, oh, well, he ain't here. They ain't here. And they was like, what do you mean? And she was like, well, you know, they possibly went to the hospital. They was like, the hospital? She was like, yeah, I saw him crying and limping. And I was like, hold on, wait a minute. So let me just stop here real quick, just in case somebody is sensitive to this topic. You know, I'm going to talk a little bit about this, not too much, but just to talk about what's going on in this situation within this context. But in all honesty, I just don't get it. Like, how can someone mistreat the child that they brought into this world? Like, I could never fathom in a million years mistreating my son nor my daughter. Like, out of everyone in the world, they're part of me. You know what I'm saying? And for little Michael to be going through all of this, it is painful to hear as well as to see. Because no child, no one, specifically no child, should have to go through this. So it hurt me to hear that, because I'm like, damn, like, for real, like, he just got home and now he's in another situation. And now possibly, you know, Heather has taken it upon herself, as I stated in my trailer breakdown, to just disappear. And who knows what she's doing to him. She's frustrated, you know, and she's not getting any money from Zac at this time. So who knows what she's doing or who she's allowing to do, you know, what they're doing to him. So I hope that's not the case, but it's just getting a little too much for me on this part. But anyhow, on a more lighter note, you know, as they were getting ready to leave, Miss Cheryl had already given them all the intel that they needed to be able to move, you know, forward with what they needed to do for the night. So they were going to head out to some of the local hospitals to check to see if they had checked in there, because they assumed that she didn't have, you know, insurance on little Michael. So before they leave, though, Zac turns around and gives Miss Cheryl some money. Now, going back to my banking years when I used to work at the bank when I was in college, it looked about 10 grand. All right, about 10 grand. Could have been a little bit more, but I couldn't see the strap on it. But it looked about 10 grand. So Miss Cheryl sitting up here talking about, who in the hell you think I am? Like, I ain't out here for no money. Like, I'm doing this for this child. I was like, oh, shit, she offended. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead and take that money back, Zac. Go and take it back, my brother, because she don't want it. So anyhow, long story short, they apologize. They're so very apologetic. And Miss Cheryl was like, shit, y'all coming over here with y'all fancy cars and all this stuff. Go on and take that stuff, man. I'm over here looking out for this boy. And she say all of that to get to this point. And I was like, come on, Miss Cheryl. You said all of that to say that? Like, Miss Cheryl, you already knew you wanted that money when he placed it in the palm of your hands. When you saw it and you thought about it as you were going in, you was like, hey, brother, go on and give me that money back because I need a little bit of something. All right? So Zac and Fatima, they go to another hospital, and, of course, they're not successful with finding out the whereabouts of Michael. Zac is frustrated right now. Zac says some of the realest shit that I've heard on this show. Point blank, period. All right? When he said, when he was out there in them streets, and I'm paraphrasing, when I was out there in them streets, I didn't think that I would ever end up in a situation like this. And that's some of the realest stuff that I've heard on this show. Like, from a male on this show. I'm just being real. Because we never think about the consequences when we out there living that hot boy summer, or I don't even think we can say the hot boy summer, or the hot girl summers, and the out there in them street summers for the fellas. Like, we never think about the consequences. And that's real talk. Like, if we just think about it for a moment, we've all possibly done some things that we regret. And I can only speak for myself by saying I know I do. But that's real talk. Like, when we're growing up, teenagers in our early 20s, some of us in our early to late 30s, where I am now, it's just crazy because we don't think about it. I'm just trying to live good. I'm just trying to get that feeling. I'm trying to live this rush. And then all of a sudden, I got a baby. For what we saw in the trailer, and we'll talk about that in another video, he said it was 5 minutes. Like I told y'all, I knew it. It was under 15 minutes. Like, 5 minutes is not worth it, bro. And now he's old enough to understand and wise enough to understand that the decision that he made during that time, and he's talking about it was just only one time. Fatima has to tell this brother, like, it only takes once. Like, it literally only takes once. I know a fella that only put it on the outside, and them things got up in there. I'm like, damn, bro. I said, look, you got to be more careful. So Zac is feeling, some type of way about it. Fatima goes on to share with him a story about her, being 17, got involved with a young guy who her parents had conveyed to her to stay away from. She didn't listen, and she ended up getting pregnant by him. And Zac was like, for real? She was like, yeah. Like, that's why I'm here with you. Like, that's why I'm here supporting you. Because I could very well be in your same shoes right now with a child, from my teenage years. So you're not the only one making these mistakes. Zac is needing this support right now, and I think this is beneficial, and I'm loving the way that they are supporting one another. Like, this is true love right here. Regardless of my situation, regardless of what I'm bringing to the table, like, let's work this out. Let's communicate it. Like, I need to let you know what's going on. You need to let me know what's going on, and let's just work through this. Now, if we're not going to talk it out or work through it, then there's no need for us to be in a relationship. All right. So moving on from there, what do we? Oh, yeah. This is the best part to me. All right. So we head back over to Jordan's crib to see the ladies diving into a little conversation with Penelope. Right. So she goes on to tell them that she purchased her dress. And it's vintage. And they were like, oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's nice. Of course, Danny wasn't trying to get to that. She really wanted to find out everything. And when I say everything, Sister Danny wanted to know everything. All right? So she goes on to tell them that, he bought her an apartment. They look at Andi. Oh, he bought me a car. They look at Andi. And I was like, damn, Andi, maybe it's identical. Maybe she lives right beside you, so he could peek to the other side of the crib. I'm sorry. I just thought it was crazy. So anyhow, Danny is eating it up, and she's on level 2 right now because she's about to take it up a notch. And I ain't gonna lie, this was needed in this show with so much sadness going on, so much drama going on. This was definitely needed from Danny to bring this comedy to the show at the end. Danny's like, oh, okay, so let's go ahead and get back on this car. Did he purchase you a Rolls Royce? She was like, oh, no. I don't need all of that. That's too much. That's a little too tacky. And of course, Andi's sitting off to the side is pissed right now because she's still in her feelings about Gary, and Penelope. Now you hear an old girl talking about what's tacky, and it just so happens to be on your doorstep because you had a penthouse. You got the Rolls Royce. So my question to you, Sister Andi, is, are you tacky? And Penelope didn't mean anything by it. She was just talking about herself. Like, she doesn't have to have all of that. And there are some women out there that don't have to have all the material, all the, the huge properties and all of that stuff. There are some women out here that just like, a little bit here, a little splash here, which I'm cool with as well. I can handle that each and every day. You see what I'm saying? So, let me see. It was so much stuff going on in here. Danny, of course, keeps on pressing because she conveys to Penelope that, Andi has a guy that actually bought her the same damn thing. Bought her a penthouse as well as a car. Actually, the Rolls Royce. Penelope is like, oh, no, I didn't mean you. Like, you're not tacky. But she really believes that you're tacky. But at the same time, she was like, so you got a Gary. And Danny's like, you wouldn't believe it. Like, it's like they're almost identical. Like, for real. Andi is trying to hold it in. Sabrina is trying to keep her composure at the same time because they really don't want to hurt this woman. They really don't want to hurt her feelings. She's pregnant right now with this child. We don't know the effects of this. So they're trying to stay calm. But Danny's like, look, I'm on one tonight. And she needs to know who she's getting in bed with. Literally. All right? So, Danny's point is, Penelope doesn't know. And we need to go ahead and nip this in the bud before it goes on too far, before she actually marries this man. Of course, she's already pregnant, so what can she do with that? But let's go ahead and put the cards out on the table. Now, the fellas come over to join the ladies, of course, but before they came over, Penelope is noticing the energy between Andi, Danny, and Sabrina, what's really going on. But before they could really get into that conversation, the fellas come over to join them, all except for Gary, of course, because he's trying to keep his distance. But ironically, when she calls him over, he stands directly next to Andi, eyeballing her, but doesn't want to look at her, because right now he's uncomfortable. But who isn't uncomfortable at this point? Andi. Andi is looking this brother directly in the face. And he's uncomfortable right now. And then she tells him to go on over there to his girl. Because what she knows in her head is, I got you at this point. That's honestly what I feel. So anyhow, everybody gets up to dance. And of course, Jordan can't dance. He has 2 left feet. And, Penelope is like, hey, Andi, go ahead and show my brother some dance moves and whatnot. Go ahead and teach him. So I love her spirit. She does have a nice spirit, almost like a nurturing spirit. You know what I'm saying? Encourage her. She loves her brother, and she's looking out for her brother as well. So, it just seems like she's the older sister, and she's taking care of her brother. That's honestly what it seems like. Now, so the fellas get up and dance with their significant other. And I believe it's Rich is like, hey man, the food is burning, or they smell smoke or something like that. So all of the fellas head outside, and Sabrina is addressing the situation. Andi is trying to leave. Danny's like, no, we're definitely not leaving. We're staying here. And the reason why we're staying here is because we're going to tell her. Either you're going to tell her about who she's with, or I'm going to definitely tell her, because what I'm seeing is This man is taking advantage of two black ladies, two black women to be exact. And all I gotta say about that is, damn it, I'm with you when you're right, Danny. Like, I'm not with you a lot, but I'm with you right now, because this definitely needs to be called out. Now, I don't know if I'm going to go as far as to call it out right now, with everything that's going on right now in this context. Let me know down below what you guys would do in this situation, how you would handle this. But that's pretty much the end of the show, because as Danny is conveying this information to Andi, obviously Danny did not scan the room to make sure that it was clear before she got into her dialogue that she was trying to convey to Andi. But Miss Penelope heard everything, and she's going to address it. And that's what we'll see in the next coming episode of Tyler Perry's Sistas. But anyhow, man, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this recap. I've enjoyed delivering it. Like, it was, it was okay. I think this episode was cool. There was some great parts to this episode. There was some funny parts in this episode, and then of course there were some sad parts in this episode. So overall, it was a cool episode, and I'm glad that we're finally getting to the point where Gary potentially is, on his way out. Like, honestly, I don't see no way of return in this situation unless Andi decides to take this brother back, which if she took him back, then that's a whole different topic. But anyhow, let's go ahead and get up out of here. But before I get up out, I do have Tyler Perry's The Oval coming tomorrow night. Also with that, I got 2 episodes of the Miss Pat Show of season 3. I stated in my previous video that I was going to start covering that on this platform. I watched it over the Thanksgiving break, and it was absolutely hilarious. Now, it's uncut, it's raw, unfiltered, but man, it was hilarious, man. So anyhow, let me get up out of here, man. I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.